the headland's a really complicated place. Basically what you see is ancient monument now, and that dates back to about 1800, and that was during the Napoleonic Wars. So what you actually see, you see a fort wall, but the whole headland is the fort. There are in fact actually two constructions, and they are called redoubts. And the main one, the one everybody goes to, is the northern fort. We call it the northern fort, and it's superb because when you walk through that entranceway, you get that atmosphere of wow, there must have been some sort of kind of drawbridge type thing there. There also must have been some sort of gate, inner gate piece. And then as you actually come into it, it's fantastic because you actually see this great rampart piece that you leave behind you. On the right hand side there's the guardhouse, which is logical, but fantastic building. It's actually built from the stone of Bury Head, which is limestone. Limestone of Bury Head dates 410 to 375 million years old. Fantastic. Coral reef south of the equator.
And was that was from the quarry? They were quarrying then?
Yeah, they actually moved stone from there, and the stonemasons shaped it, and you can look at it, and it really is quite superb. Now you can see the Fort Cafe, and it's got these pillars and everything. And this was the guardhouse, and the guardhouse was actually fantastic. It was, it was limited space and everything. But now it's a visitor centre, and you also can have beverages there at the cafe.
With a lovely view. Yeah,
fantastic views looking out across the actual outer part of Torbay, looking down the coast and everything, and it's great. But the key thing to remember is the fact that the quarrying has actually taken away quite a lot of historical remains. About 1800, as I say, it's taken away on the left-hand side a lot of the barrack buildings and things like that existed there. 1,000 men. And to me, my senses play great tricks because you're walking up there and you can think of all the noise, you can think of the atmosphere and everything of all these people. There were even families there, kids running around. Pretty basic, pretty Spartan in the winter months. I mean, Bury Head in the winter when the wind blows and the easterlies come in, wow, it really is freezing. Yeah. You're -5, -6 chill factor. But on the right-hand side, you'll suddenly see these kind of grass marks and everything, and you'll suddenly look and you think, gosh, those are the barrack buildings. And as they stretch right the way up, and then you come to what is now the Coast Guard station, or was the Coast Guard station. They're all on stand down now. But that was the old magazine building. So that's where the gunpowder was stored for the cannons and everything like that.
Really close to where everybody lived.
Yeah, oh yes, you've got to have it like that, and it's fantastic. And you go to the end and you can actually see the crescent shape of where they would have had cannons in case the French came. Because remember, the French would have come by boat. So the whole atmosphere is actually there, and it's added to by the view. I mean, the view is looking up and down the coast, and the great thing being is the fact that light conditions from dawn right the way through to dusk. Even at night you can stand at the end there and it's fantastic. Well, the lighthouse is reputed to be the tallest but shortest lighthouse above sea level, with the deepest pendulum pit of 150 feet. And the classic thing being is you don't need it to be any higher because the cliffs at Bury Head are around about 200 feet, 60 something metres above sea level. But it's one of those kind of places you go to the lighthouse and you think, wow. And then you get the people up there and some people say, does it work? And you say, yes, it works, it's fantastic. Look, you can look at it and you can see the actual lenses and everything, and it's great. The other times I've ever visited a lighthouse, it's staggered up thousands of steps, or hundreds of steps at least.
So when was it manned until?
They had a lighthouse keeper. He used to come and actually maintain it and look after it and everything, and he lived in the Coast Guard cottages. And he came up and he actually looked. So they were kind of part-time and everything, and he cleaned the lenses and sorted it. It's now automatic, and I'm not quite sure if it works on Calagas or what now at present moment. Oh, it can't do it, must. But the great thing about it is there is this fantastic little lighthouse.
Yeah. So tell us about the other fort, the other side.
Well, you've got that main fort that everybody seems to radiate into, but there is the other one. It looks more dilapidated and everything. It's only because maintenance and putting money into this kind of thing, because of really expensive job. But when you go into that particular fort, there is now actually a walkway across, a drawbridge across to that extent. And the great thing there is to start to understand that there was a moat around. No water. Didn't have water in
Were
the
they?
moat.
Is it metal and spikes and things in the moat? Is that right?
What they
Or-
would have put would be spikes, but they would use the natural vegetation as well to cut and put it into the moat. Remember, Bury Head's a folly, not a shot fired in anger when it was actually built during that time period. An expensive one.
Yeah.
But it's the whole atmosphere of when you go into that particular fort by the car park area there. It's great. It's absolutely fabulous because you look at the ruined buildings there and everything, and you can see that there was, again, another guardhouse. In behind that was a magazine building. Go in the magazine building. It's worth it because it's brick. Why is it brick? Because the gunpowder was stored in there, and the last thing in the world is you want any sparks from any of the troops wearing any of the regalia, and if it sparked against the actual stones. So you've got that fantastic kind of look of the actual building. Used to be barrel shaped. The brick part of the roof is barrel shaped, and that was all to do with the explosion. If there was an explosion with a barrel shape, it would only go straight up. If you've got a normal pitched roof, it would dissipate out, and there would be probably catastrophic problems to people there. So lovely, and then you walk and you can actually parade ground on the right. Gun emplacements, Bury Head, interesting, facing land. Designed very much more of inviting the French, pushing their fleet if they came sailing around, and pushing them around towards Brixham, so you could open fire at a static fleet. Actually here anchored, which is much easier than to do.
So pointed inland, but pointed towards the bay.
Towards Brixham.
Yeah.
Yeah. So designed as a siege fort, inviting the French if they did come, land at Brixham, offload loads of troops, try and get rid of the fort at Bury Head, delay time, the rest of the country get the troops and everybody ready to come down and kick them into touch. Great, fantastic. But remember, there is also that other atmosphere, because there's stories of a Saxon rampart underneath the main fort wall. But what's happening now is they're finding flints, scrapers, animal skin scrapers and things like that, showing Neolithic man or something close to that time period used Bury Head. So historically it's got that fantastic, you're walking a passage up on Bury Head that somebody walked millions of years ago. So it's one of those kind of fabulous places. But you've got the boost of all the wonderful flowers, the plants that are there, and great, fantastic. And then, if you get the time, on the cliffs, largest breeding colony of a little bird called the guillemot, black and white little bird that in fact uses the cliffs of Bury Head. It's the largest colony on the English Channel coast. And it's increasing in numbers. When I first came to Bury Head, I sat on the cliffs there, and my interview was 2 days. And the great thing being is, the early morning of my second day, I sat on the cliffs and looked at the birds and saw the birds there, and I thought to myself, wow, this is great. We've got history, we've got flowers, and we've got all this colony of seabirds, and it was great. 440 birds in those days on the cliffs.
That was in 1985.
Yep.
Was it?
Now, over 1,500 guillemots actually on the cliffs. Fabulous to watch. You've got a beautiful season of being able to go up on repeated visits just to see what's going on. Gone by end of June. They finished their breeding cycle and off they go.
So it must be quite a sight when so when do they come back?
Well, my son and I have done a lot of work on this one, and we've discovered that they actually come back and start using the cliffs in October, between the 7th and the 13th of October.
Wow, that's amazing.
You can actually predict the day that they'll be back, and that's the great thing about it. Kind of, if you're walking Bury Head on a regular basis, you start to look out. You come to the 7th of October and you start to look out and everything like that, and and by the 13th there are numbers back on the cliffs again. Sorting out their breeding areas and where we're going to go, because guillemots don't build a nest. They actually lay an egg which is pear-shaped, so it actually rotates around itself and less likely to fall off into the sea.
Wow.
And you can see that. Go into the visitor centre, they've got a camera there, and you can actually see the actual seabird colony, and they can zoom in on it and everything, and you can actually see no nest, one egg. And these are the great things about Bury Head. There is no other site in the British Isles where you get all those combinations put together, from the ancient monument status to a site of special scientific interest to do with not only the flowers and the plants that we have there, but also to do with the bats. The greater horseshoe bats that in fact use, would you believe it, caves. The quarrying actually opened up massive cave systems. But these cave systems are really, really dangerous. So
they go all the way through, don't they?
They go all
really
around through the
expensive,
headland.
yeah.
55 cave systems on Bury Head.
Mm.
And one of the, with my work, one of the experiences I had was to actually help explore and measure the caves and things like that. Oh, absolutely awesome. Harum scarum, I tell you what,
God, I can
really,
imagine.
because there's squeezes and everything like that and everything. And then when you go into some, you've beautiful formations there that have been created through fresh water and seawater. So they're solution caves in their formation.
Wow.
That's why Bury Head's such an exciting place to visit, and that's why it's all part and parcel of Brixham's heritage. When you leave the Northern Fort and you're walking along the actual trackway, that was one of the old roads that was actually used by the lorries coming out of the quarry, because a lot of the stone from the quarry at Bury Head went away by boat, and some of it actually came out through lorries, big lorries that used to travel down through Brixham. You know, imagine that. It must have been absolutely horrendous, the noise and dust. But as you walk along through there, and you can actually go and turn a bit further along, turn right, and you actually end up looking into that main quarry area. And remember that is the more recent part of the quarrying. And it's a very interesting quarrying process because it's called bench quarrying. So they came in at a high level, took the stone out, then withdrew and went back, and then came back in again at a lower level. And you can actually see the benchmarks all the way around, in fact, of where it goes down. So you're standing actually on that kind of roadway business, looking into that inner part of that quarry. You can see the depth that they go down to, but it's a site that you need to be extremely careful of. Don't get too close to the edge. And then at the very bottom, there are some pools, water, and you're thinking, wow, wait, it's fresh water. It's not. It actually is a mixture of salt and seawater, because through the cave systems underneath, the actual seawater comes through. When the tide's high, the pool there, water levels rise in it and everything like this. And within that area, there are in fact a lot of caves. Again, they really are exceptionally dangerous, closed off basically because of the danger. Because remember, the caves were never discovered until the quarrying had finished. They were completely encapsulated within the limestone. And when you stand there and you look down into that quarry there and other parts, you will suddenly think, gosh, there must have been so much noise, so much dust here, and yet all that limestone actually coming out of there. And the limestone was actually used for building stone, road stone, lime for agricultural purposes. And there are many buildings throughout the country that in fact have used for building the limestone from Bury
And there are
Head.
kilns around Brixham, aren't there, where the
Yes,
limestone is processed?
lime kilns. There is one, in fact, actually the back of the Bury Head Hotel. There is a nice one just there, but there are also dotted around through Brixham many lime kilns that can be seen and discovered. And up New Road, I think there's 2 up on that one in Brixham.
There's Kiln Path as well.
Yeah.
There's one up behind David, isn't there? Up
Yeah.
behind there.
So it's interesting to see, because when you start to think about it, the amount of stone that went out from there, and they had all kinds of machinery down there. And you can, in the visitor centre at Bury Head, see some pictures, in fact, of when they were working there, and the machinery and the crushers, because they crushed a lot of the stone up. Some of it went out whole in blocks, some went out crushed up and everything like this. So it really was quite fantastic. But also, when you think about it, the amount of people here in this town, Brixham, must have in fact actually been working and relied on that quarry for employment. So it's absolutely brilliant there. But as you come back out and go down again, you'll come to another gun battery, Hardy's Head Battery. And you can actually see the granite sets and part of the low wall that would have been there to actually catch the cannons as they fired, or if they ever did fire. which they didn't. But it's fantastic to actually just see. You're looking then now to cross that part of the bay. And what it does do is it gives you that fantastic atmosphere of the bay and everything. Looking at the crescent, you've got to go a long, long way in the world to beat what you actually see from Berry Head, but also from the other viewpoints down through Brixham as well, looking out across the bay.